All right, here we go. Welcome. All right, here we go. Yeah, I gotta get rid of that. Welcome. All right, here we go. Yeah, I gotta get rid of that. Welcome. Fucked up my whole plan. All right, so Jason, hey, welcome. And Rebel Dharma, Wednesday night, we were starting a discussion before the group started in regards to I don't know. I mean, we were just kind of talking about Hinduism and Buddhism and where do they intersect? How are they different ways in which, kind of aspects of meditation. It's super interesting to me, and it gets very convoluted depending on who you talk to, which is why I really enjoyed having, several years of studying non-Western philosophy, where I really looked at Taoism and all the different aspects of Buddhism and the different sects of Buddhism, Hinduism, and from a kind of anthropological and a philosophical standpoint, which allowed me to kind of take a broader view. What I think happens is kind of like what you were saying, so you meet some Hare Krishnas and they're going to really, talk to you about their perspective, their Hare Krishna view. And I don't think it's horrible. It's not bad. It's generally good. But if you start, it's kind of like anything, as you get deeper into understanding of some of the different, or like TM, for example, is another thing that people mentioned, there might be some things that are revealed that don't really fit within Buddhism. Or and so they're different. I mean, Krishna is Hindu, and TM is also kind of it's kind of its own thing, but it is a Hindu meditative practice. So anyway, that's what we were talking about before you guys got here. And what we focus on here, what I focus on primarily, is a Western, meaning, American, because that's where I was raised, and this is where I have learned about all these different things. So a Western lens of Southeast Asian, particularly Thai forest meditation practice and Buddhist interpretation, also known as Theravadan Buddhism, which is really the path of the elders. And so that's kind of my formal study and practice has been. And then, bringing also a Western psychological kind of perspective, just because of my own therapy, my own, kind of lens of wanting to see things from a psychological, not just purely kind of religious perspective. I do consider myself an atheist. I'm a Buddhist atheist. And what I appreciate about Buddhism, particularly Theravada Buddhism, is that Theravada Buddhism, and this is something else we were kind of talking about earlier, Theravada Buddhism just kind of says, like, there is no creator God. There's no creator God. There's no head figure that is pulling the strings and running the show. And, for us who have been indoctrinated into that way of thinking, it can be really challenging. So I do think that there's been a lot of interpretations of Buddhism that even fit with the kind of the Trinity. And Hinduism is one of those kind of religions that can, because it is a deity focused religion, it is a kind of it's a kind of a polytheist, perspective. And really where the Buddha kind of stepped away from Hinduism and from all of these different gods and lesser gods and, heavenly realms and even the idea of a soul, he said that's not the point. He was like, whether you believe in God or don't believe in God isn't the point. The point is, are you suffering? And what can we do? This is the phenomenology. What can we do to free ourselves from suffering? Because if it worked that we could dunk our head in the Ganges, the Ganga, the holy river in India, which is 98% fecal matter, by the way, if we could just dunk our heads in that, then everyone would be free from sin, because everyone has done that in India at the time. That was considered the way, and so the Buddha was like, so that's clearly not the way, because people are still suffering. So I want to find another way. And then instead of looking externally at deities and semi-deities and rituals, he looked inward. And this is what has been kind of carried on, from the Buddhist perspective for a bunch of years, like 2,568. And last week I was kind of talking about, these groups of teachings, the 37 wings of awakening, which are considered the group of teachings that have been kind of passed down, carried on. And it's also known as the lists. And by the way, if you're interested in this cheat sheet list that I have, then send me a message either on Instagram at the No BS Buddhist, or at my email, jasmurph40@gmail.com, and I'll send you this list. It's a pretty cool thing. I used it for a lot of years as a frame to look at some of these, when I wasn't preparing notes for a talk, I would just kind of use the list to refer to, and it's pretty awesome. I don't have we might have a copy, like I can make a hard copy here, printed out. So there can be some hard copies too, but if you send me an email, I'll send you the list. So in these 37 wings of awakening is basically the bulk of the Buddhist teachings, what the Buddha taught for 45 years after he became awakened. And, we were talking about the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and then we ended up on the 4th foundation of mindfulness, which is basically all of the Dharma. And so I'll try to kind of continue from there in some way, shape, or form today. And we'll just kind of see what happens, because there's so many lists and there's so many kind of, I don't necessarily, go through all of them, but I go through most of them, because some of them I feel like are, even though they're applicable, they're beneficial for you to really kind of look at for yourself. I tend to focus on the ones that I find the most useful in day-to-day life, like the Four Noble Truths and the 5 hindrances and the 5 faculties of awakening and the 7 factors of awakening. Like there's all these different kind of lists, the 3 characteristics of existence, and all these different things that it's important to study. It's useful to study. And how practical are they in the here and now? So before we move into meditation, I guess there's one more thing I wanted to kind of comment on. Last week, I think at the end, I got a question about my own practice, my personal practice, and I was talking to people about that. Maybe it was the week before. I kind of don't remember, but I've been reflecting on that. And one of the things that I had said is, at the end, I was like, and if you're within your first 20 years of practice, I kind of said it was a bit of an arrogant thing. If you're in your first 20 years of practice, you should meditate for 45 minutes every day. And I want to kind of clarify what I mean by that. There is a foundational necessity to meditation. So just to take a sprinkle of meditation here and there isn't going to allow the depth of understanding and for panya, wisdom, to arise. And it might feel good. It's great. It can be a good, relaxation technique. It can be really useful for a kind of day-to-day practice of, kind of like what the way I describe, like I drop into meditation several times a week, but I'm really more of a kind of mindfulness in every moment, trying to be as mindful as possible particularly when there's some aversion or some, agitation or something like that. But personally, my ability to do that wouldn't have been possible really without the foundation of depth of meditation for long periods of time. And so that's kind of what I meant, is like, until you've really been established in a practice for a long period of time, and even having been established in practice for a long period of time, good to have a regular and consistent meditation practice, and to really dedicate yourself. That we can talk about all the 37 wings of awakening, and we can talk about, philosophize about all this stuff. But the practice, which is really, this is the root of what we do here, what I kind of teach, and I kind of try to keep looping back to. It's the root of what I teach. It's the root of what the Buddha taught, which is to develop a mind that is free from suffering. And the way to do that is to really understand what's happening in the mind. And the way that we're going to do that is not necessarily by thinking about what's happening in the mind. We're going to do that by dropping below the discursive thinking and into the being body, or into the being moment, right? So that's why we meditate every week, and hopefully you're continuing that on your own. So I felt like I just wanted to kind of clarify. I felt like I just kind of popped that out, like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And like, I definitely wasn't saying I feel like I don't need to meditate regularly anymore. Because I know that I do, and I see a difference from when I do and reconnect to that foundational practice, and when I don't, which does happen sometimes. Life is busy. Yeah. So that being said, let's sit, let's practice. Let's be in. Good. So finding a posture that's workable, that's sustainable. Or you can be relaxed and alert. Opening to the comings and goings of sound. Sounds outside the room. Sounds inside the room. And in some way, allowing the sounds, comings and goings, to just be in the background of our attention. as we aim the awareness or the attention towards this experience of breathing. Helpful to choose a point, whether it's the tip of the nose or the rise and fall of the belly. And in an effort to collect the attention, aiming, connecting to the experience of breathing, and then sustaining that connection for as long as possible. Knowing that the attention may wander off. And that it's not a problem. It's just the mind doing what it does. Think, plan, remember. Right in that moment of perhaps judgment or criticism, we can develop some kindness, some compassion for this unruly mind, hard to tame, alighting where it wishes. again and again. Just recognizing when the attention wanders off, slips into future or past, history or mystery. And with that sense of friendliness or kindness with the mind, aiming the attention back, connecting again and again. Here, this breath, this sitting, breathing body, as the focal point of your awareness, of your present time experience. Calming the mind, relaxing the body. Each breath, Breathing in, calming the mind. Breathing out, relaxing the body. Again and again. Breathing in, calm. Breathing out, relax. Each time that the mind sees that it's wandered off, this is mindfulness, this remembering here again and again. Okay, well, I'm curious if there's any questions just about maybe anything that I said prior to the sit, or anything that's come up in the instruction or in the sit, anything that has to do with meditation, Buddhism. I'm going to start to move through the four foundations of mindfulness, the foundations of, the Four Noble Truths, which is the foundation of what we call Buddhism today. So we'll see what we get through, but I just want to open up for any questions before that. Please.
This is like a regular Buddhism question, but like everything seems so practical except for like the whole reincarnation thing, where it's like, how can they be so sure of that aspect of it?
We were talking about this before. I'm glad you brought. What's your name again? I forget. Travis, right? So what he was talking about is everything seems very practical and pragmatic in most of Buddhism, and then there's this reincarnation kind of thing. So what's up with that? How do they know? How are they sure? Yeah, is that I don't know. I believe, here's the way that I like to answer this. First of all, as we were talking about earlier, so reincarnation is often misunderstood because it's really a Hindu interpretation, and it has some, and then within Hinduism, which is where Buddhism was born out of, the idea was that you, as a being, have a soul, and that soul, based on the karma, that soul is reborn, reincarnated based on your karmic momentum, so that's what reincarnation says. There's a part of you that will carry on based on the deeds that you do, right? And it's pretty widely, it's like within Hinduism and within Tibetan Buddhism, there's a similar kind of idea. Now, from the Theravadan perspective, and I'm a little like, I don't know, but where the teaching variation is that from a Theravadan perspective, what we're talking about here, what the Buddha called rebirth. And the idea is that we are in a cycle of birth and death and rebirth. And it's not you that is getting reborn, but it is our karma alone, that there is no, from the Buddhist perspective, this is where the Buddha rebelled against all the other teachings of the time to say that, and this is the teaching of anatta, which is not self. There is no fixed or permanent self to be found. Neuroscience, neuroscience and physiology has also, kind of, and what else we call biological psychology, biopsych, has also all kind of confirmed that there is no real self that carries on, as far as we can tell. So the concept of rebirth from a Buddhist perspective, particularly a Theravadan Buddhist perspective, is that karma is transmigrated to another energetic plane, and until the work to do here is to, quote unquote, cleanse our karma, so that we're not born again into the cycles of birth and death. So that's what the kind of rebirth concept is. From a reincarnation perspective, and someone out there, you might have a different kind of, or maybe you read a different book, or that has a different view, which is fine, because I don't really know, because I haven't died yet. In this life, I haven't died yet. My favorite way to really look at rebirth is that we're reborn every breath, every moment. How many incarnations have you had in this life? How many kind of transmigrations of your psyche have you had? You know? And so, and even though there's this idea of something has carried on from your birth to now, there's some aspect, quote unquote, of who you are from the, and I'll get more into this. So I'm going to give you this answer now, and then I'll kind of, because this is actually something that I really want to cover. I thought about covering it today. And I guess I kind of am. But the idea of, you know, what is rebirth? It's a flame, or I mean, what is life? But it's a flame-like process. It appears to be solid or fixed, but it's not. It's constantly changing. It's constantly moving. It's in flux. Our mind is in flux. Everything is in flux. There's nothing that's not in flux. What is static in this world? I mean, is there anything that you can think of that's not changing? Do you have a question about that, or you know?
About what you were saying.
Okay.
If it's too long a conversation, you can talk about it another time.
Yeah.
But, as far as reincarnation, if it's not you being reborn, but it's your karma being transmuted, is there no justice for people who lived a life like as a murderer and got away with everything?
Well, because it's karma, I mean, I don't have a good answer for you. There's a couple, so I don't really know. You know, there's a couple different views around that. And one is, which can be dangerous, which leads to the nihilistic view of nothing fucking matters. Well, if I'm not going to get, and this is why religion is so popular, is if I'm not going to get punished when I die and my soul burns in hell or is in a hell realm, then why be a good person? Right? Or if I'm not going to be rewarded in the next life, or perhaps in this life, for being a good person, then why should I do it? Right? So that's kind of one view. It's like kind of a bit of like a dualistic view. Then the other side of that is that in this rebirth of here and now, and this reincarnation of here and now, how many hell realms have you been in? How many hell realms have you lifted yourself up out of? You know, so I feel like this is very emotional. I don't know what happens when we die. Yeah. I don't know that anyone does. I think people have a lot of opinions about it. And from the Buddhist perspective, what happens is that there's not a great way to explain it. The way that the way that it's been often explained is karma is the flame that when we have negative karma, it burns and it causes suffering. And what's the work to do here? The word karma really means action. So how we react or respond versus react in each moment matters in the next moment more than what happens at the end of life. You know, so to say that, well, I mean, if I live my whole life as a good person, like I'm helping people, I'm generous, I'm supporting people, I'm being of service, and I die and I go to hell. But if there's no me that's going to hell, why does it matter? The other side of that argument, you know, or if I become a mass murderer, you know, do I if there's no me that goes to heaven, but I'm living with the suffering of that, then why does it matter? That's kind of, does that make sense? You understand what I'm
Yes, it
saying?
does.
Yeah.
I also wonder if someone is a mass murderer, but they have no remorse
Right.
and they don't experience a hell in this realm.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I actually personally, I don't believe that that's even true.
okay.
Yeah. I don't think that that's true. I think that no one gets away with anything. And that's the law of karma. And that affects people psychologically, physically, emotionally, that we all have to pay our dues. I mean, that seems to be true, like on a practical, pragmatic sense, and so kind of from, I mean, that's just kind of my personal kind of interpretation. I don't have, like I said, I don't have a great answer for you about it. It's a wonderful discussion, and I mean, fuck it, we're in it. Like, let's just keep talking about it. Because it's super interesting, but what that boils down to is I don't know. I don't know, because one of the reasons why I am so confident in the Buddhist teaching is what I love about Buddhism, which is verifiable faith versus blind faith, because you don't have to believe in transmigration of karmic movement either. You don't have to believe that there's not a soul. You don't have to believe any of that. And it's confusing depending on the type of Buddhism that you're practicing. And so this idea of verifiable faith is that everything that I have learned and that I can experience, I have been able to verify through my own experience. And so there are things that are beyond my experience, beyond my understanding, that I haven't been able to verify. But I have faith based on what's happened so far in 25 years of this practice, that more will be revealed. I have a pretty strong faith in that. And I don't need to know what happens when I die. Learn, I think, and maybe you do, I don't know. There's certain things that that the Buddha called vexations. He would say, so people would ask him about like the existence of God, so to speak, like for an example. And he would say something like, to contemplate such things causes vexation and craziness. And that would be his answer. Is there a God? Does it matter? If there is or isn't a God, does it matter? If there is or isn't rebirth, does it matter? How is knowing that, freeing your disentangling or entangling? Is it causing suffering, or is it a relief of suffering to know that? That's in this kind of vein. That's what the Buddha was really interested in. You had a question, and then I'll get to you, Mike.
So related to the no self
idea,
which I know is like is there any like philosophical stance regarding free will? Like if there's no self, right, from this pattern, right, you just somehow aware, like is there actually free will, or is it just going to assume that there is?
Yeah, someone asked me that recently. That it was about kind of this not self, or the translation of the word anatta, which really means not Atman, So Atman meant soul in the Hindu yogic tradition. This kind of transmigration of the soul, right? And the Buddha is kind of, this is one of his, kind of departures from what was taught at the time, is to say, in my experience, there is no soul. In my practice, in my awakened understanding, I have found no soul. But the word anatta means, actually, it means not self. So I actually just misspoke, because Atman means soul. And the Buddha rebelled against that to say anatta means not self, so that there's no self that is continuing on, throughout time. So, but let me answer your question. So I was just having a conversation the other day about free will. And someone was like, "Oh, you're Buddhist. Oh, so that means that you don't believe in free will." And I was like, "No, I absolutely believe in free will. The word karma is action. We have a choice in every moment of how to act. Whether we want to cling, whether we want to let go, whether we want to react versus respond. We have this is our free will." And I think most religions, even Abrahamic religions, would agree to that same thing, except for it's God who judges what we decide to do, right? Or the devil or whatever influences what we decide to do. And from the Buddhist perspective, it is the implication of karma that is the result of what we do. And that implication will then express itself in the next moment. But in each moment, someone can murder, and can murder 25 times. And then, hopefully, I guess not everyone, but hopefully, maybe get caught, stop the murdering, just stop the killing. And then there would be some, they're in prison, or they're, something happens. While serving life in prison can be a cleansing of the karma. They're not damned. Well, none of us are damned, which is really an interesting thing to think about. Because, we have this conditioning that once you've done a thing, it can't be undone. That's true. It can't be undone. But the karmic momentum can be reversed, can be cleansed through practice, through right livelihood, through precepts. We're thick in the weeds now. All right, Mike, what do you got? Mike's looking things up in books.
No, it's every time we touch on rebirth, or I think of this it's from the let me see,
The Nikaya, yeah.
Samyutta Nikaya. It's like the fourth kanda. It says here, like, dependency of consciousness for khandas, and it is impossible for anyone to explain the passing out of one existence and entering into a new existence, or the growth, increase, and development of consciousness independently of corporality, feeling, perception, and mental formation. So, I mean,
Confusing.
I guess. No, it's confusing to me. Yet at the same time, I guess what I deduce, or like pull out of that, is that it's really impossible for anyone to say with any certainty, who hasn't died, what happens. So, I mean, I guess that's what that's saying. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, this kind of gets back to well, okay, so Ajahn Pasanno, I I went to this big Buddhist teachers conference with all the big wigs like Joseph Goldstein and Jack Kornfield and, all of them, and lamas and all kinds. And I was asking all kinds of questions. I was like, boom, boom. And it was all about karma, rebirth, reincarnation. I was like, what's up with this? Kind of like exactly the way you kind of brought it up. Like, it seems to me there's so much practical, pragmatic, instructional freedom from suffering. And then there's these elements. And Bhikkhu Bodhi actually is one person who just, he's very strong in his determination. Bhikkhu Bodhi is a well-known scholar and translator of the Pali language. And he was very adamant, people were shying away. American or Western teachers were like, I don't know, because it's not palatable to discuss, because it's not sexy, And Bhikkhu Bodhi was like, if you're teaching Buddhism, karma, rebirth, it is, and the connection between karma and rebirth is mandatory to teach. But there are things that we can't know. So we're teaching from an unverifiable place. So Ajahn Pasano, one of my teachers, I asked him this question. And he said, as if a flame, like a forest is on fire, and a gust of wind comes and picks up a flame, and could be an ember, but maybe it's not an ember, maybe it's just a flame, and that gust of wind moves that flame to another location, and it lands and begins to burn again. And that is what happens with karma when we die. And I was like, okay. I mean, I can kind of see how that could be possible. Yeah.
Well, I don't know, maybe one way to think of it in my head right now is all the actions that you do probably have an effect on people. So when you die, your actions your karma is living through that impact. You're negatively affecting people that karma continues.
Absolutely.
After that.
That's a great way to think about it. Yeah, the ripple effect, right, of one's life. And that's kind of what I was saying. Whether you live in a good way matters more about how you lived your life and maybe who you affected, and versus how if you lived your life as a axe murdering crazy person or whatever. Yeah.
So I guess so you say this teacher is very adamant about how you have to teach this aspect. And then I also recall sort of can't quote anything of course, but how the Buddha says not to take anything on faith. Discover for yourself. Don't just believe me that meditation will do this stuff for you. Try it out.
Right.
See for yourself. So if I'm supposed to try out karma and rebirth, I mean, then supposedly I already have, right? If that's I think a lot of times people think about karma and rebirth in terms of their next life. Maybe they're clinging to this life. But it makes me think about past lives.
Yeah.
And maybe, argue, a little bit about my life situation right now. Right now, I feel like maybe I had a really shitty past life and I'm being dealt a bunch of horrible result from horrible karma, but probably just because the worst is suck.
Maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah, maybe. But I also, I feel like that's one bad thing, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't feel any connection to this past life. So if I'm trying to verify this thing for myself with my own experience, then I kind of feel like, I'm not sure
Yeah.
how do you see what I'm saying? How do you square those, or can you, or do you see?
Yeah. So just I'll kind of reiterate, because you guys may not have heard, he's in the back of the room, but the idea that, most people, when they think about rebirth or reincarnation, and then we can really use them interchangeably, but just the idea of incarnation is not, it's not you that's incarnating again, right? It's really more the expression of your karma taking form. And so that's not like I, Jason Murphy, am going to be born again in a future life or was living in a past life. It's more like that karmic momentum took expression in this life form. Which, there's, I don't know. I don't know how that works. But the thing about faith, that I kind of made that point a few minutes ago, blind faith, almost every other religion is asking you to have blind faith. And from a Buddhist perspective, verifiable faith is what is being encouraged with some healthy skepticism. That's okay. Have a little skepticism, but don't stop practicing what's benefiting you because you don't know what happens at the end. You're not at the end. I'm not at the end. Who's at the end? Ajahn Chah, when he was on his deathbed, lived for, like 6 months. Thich Nhat Hanh had this sustainable, peaceful, I don't know if he was peaceful, but from the way that people described his transition, I don't believe that they were born again into this world based on what I've heard and what I knew about the way they live their lives, And so that, for me, like, that's the best I could hope for. I think I said something, I don't remember if it was here, like there's kind of 2 ways that people die. Yeah. Clinging to life or letting go with ease. Regretting their past or their deeds, or free. But we have to see for ourselves. Yeah. So there's that. And then there was the other piece that you brought up around karma, like how it's expressing itself now. So this is, I think, the useful frame, my favorite frame, which is how many incarnations, it might not be the past life, but it might be 6 months ago, or it might be 6 years ago, or it might be 16 years ago. Karmic, my karmic actions from 6 months ago, 6 years ago, 16 years ago, we don't know how they're going to show up and when, and it doesn't matter. We can't know. All we can do is react or respond here and now. And this is what Buddhism is telling us. And this is what matters from the Buddhist perspective. How can we be at ease and live in a way that is skillful and that is leading to peace and ease in the here and now? In my limited understanding, I fully admit I have a pretty limited understanding of especially scholarly Buddhism. But it reminds me of a story. Let's see, it's been a little while since I read this one. The Sutra of Totality, the Sutra on Totality in the Samyutta Nikaya. Monks, I will teach you the totality of life. Listen and attend carefully to it, and I will speak. What, monks, is totality? It is just the eye with the objects of sight. the ear with the objects of hearing, the nose with the objects of smell, the body with the objects of touch, the mind with the objects of cognition. This, monks, is called totality. Now, if anyone were to say, aside from this explanation of totality, I will preach another totality, that person would be speaking empty words, and being questioned would not be able to answer. Why is this? Because that person is talking about something outside of possible knowledge. The Sutra on Totality. So all that we can know from this teaching, all that we can know is what is happening in our own experience. And we can pontificate and we can philosophize, and we have these great brains, you know, and they can be really useful, and they can get us in a lot of trouble. Which another kind of point on this whole karmic, you know, rebirth type stuff is, yeah. So if you're human, you were born into this realm, into the human realm from the Buddhist cosmological view. And that is considered a fortunate rebirth. So that would mean that your karma, now you might have some agony, because that's what happens in the human realm. There's agony, and there's also grace, and there's joy, and there's beauty, and there's the availability of the Dharma and the practice and the freedom. So we all have had a fortunate rebirth in the sense that we are even here contemplating this. So from a multi-cosmological Buddhist perspective, don't waste your fucking time. Roger.
Not having studied the Buddhist cosmological definitions, is there a realm that is considered, I don't know if higher is the more suitable, more desirable to be born in than the human?
Well, here's the thing. So again, going with impermanence. So I want to say that this again is like a verifiable faith thing, right? Because there's this cosmology. It is what the Buddha did teach about this. It fits with some of the aspects of Hinduism. Hinduism, from the Buddhist perspective, isn't totally wrong, but they just got a few things wrong that the Buddha, in his presentation, made adjustments, anatta being one. Also, this idea of these realms, the idea in the 32 planes of existence, right, is that there is heavenly realms, there is hell realms, and animal realms, and ghost realms, and deva realms. Devas are angels, which are kind of like in between, that are like spirits. And so even in a heavenly realm, let's think of a heavenly realm. Constant, blissful joy, right? Constant. That's a heavenly realm. Impermanent. But for the amount of time that one lives in that realm, and it can last for a very long time. Things can move very slowly. This is where we start talking about eons, but that it's moving and changing all the time. And beings that are in this realm are in this blissful state all the time. Can you imagine if you were just vibrating with bliss all the time? do you think it would stay joyous? Or would it become painful? Or would it become annoying?
You might want to experience something different.
You might want to experience something different, so that even in the heavenly realm, there is dissatisfaction. That's the point. Yeah. Like if all you could eat was banana splits, or whatever your favorite food is. What's your favorite food? And that's all you could eat all day, every day. Right? Chances are it would lose its appeal. There would be a growing dissatisfaction. So even though it's a slower process, this is why the bliss seekers, what I'm kind of calling toxic positivity, kind of piss me off sometimes. Because they're so delusional. Because it's not possible. First of all, reality says that this realm is 10,000 joys, 10,000 sorrows, the ups, the downs. Without the suffering and the recognition of our suffering, first noble truth, without it, we can't awaken. This is why I respect addicts, because without the depth of that suffering of addiction, the freedom found, the recovery isn't as sweet. I had another thought, but I don't remember where it went. It's gone. But this has been an interesting conversation. We have a few minutes actually. So planes of existence. So yeah, so then that's the thing I was going to say. So the opposite side of that is what it's called the hungry ghost realm. So there's the heavenly realm, and then there's the hungry ghost realm. And then somewhere there's an animal realm, and then there's a human realm, and then there's, like a Brahmin realm. Like there's all kinds of realms that I don't fully understand. I don't fully know. But I like to think about it on a psychological level. That depth of addiction that I was talking about, that a lot of us know. The hungry ghost, the description and the depiction of the hungry ghost is beings with pinhole mouths, irritated throats, and distended bellies. So, and they are in like all their favorite foods. Like this is the hungry ghost realm. This is the addiction realm. The pinhole mouth can never get enough. The irritated throat, that even when they do try to satiate their hunger, it's painful. And distended bellies, because there's just endless amount of hunger. Never satisfied. And I think of that depiction when I think about addiction. And what would be, the balance between those two is this human realm, where we can make choices on how we respond versus react, where we can practice mindfulness and meditation, concentration, ethical living, Yeah, you want me to read that? I'll read that. Shannon says, and I agree, sometimes when certain beliefs, don't fit with the rest of a practice, it is due to adaptation of local practices to help with conversion, right? Or to make new religions palatable for those in a region, just as or just a random thought from a resident nerd. Yeah, totally. And this is where I feel like the more palatable kind of like no soul versus soul, it's not as easy to understand. And sometimes even the pragmatic and practicality that is my lens, because I'm non-theist. I'm a non-theistic, even though I was raised Christian, by the way. I went to church 3 days a week for most of my childhood. And the way that my view is that I like to look at things from a psychological and practical phenomenological perspective, and I believe that is useful, and that's my frame. And there you go to the Kadampa Center, or you go to a Zen center, and you're going to get a different presentation. Yeah. So it's not only regional, right, but it's also, the teacher and the tradition. In Thailand, they have lots of animism. In Bali too, I think Baliism, they do an amazing job of mixing Buddhism and Hinduism and the animism and these kind of spirit gods and natural world, like the water and the earth and the elemental gods. And it's just so amazing the way it's all blended together. And who knows what's true? Who knows what's true? But there is a power in myth. And I think that we can't get rid of all of it. I'm not willing to. I think that cosmology is useful. And mythology is absolutely useful. And there's things that we just don't know. I don't even know what I don't know. Do you? Do you know what you don't know?
All of the knowns that I don't know.
That's right. All I know is that I don't know nothing. Socrates. Operation Ivy.
Operation Ivy.
Socrates said it first. Thank you for your time and attention. There's a bowl in the room. You can put donations there if you so desire. You also can donate to me through Venmo at No BS Buddhist or Jason Murphy. And on those of you online, most of you know, Against the Stream donations. It's a good way to donate to the center. It's a nonprofit, and any donations are tax deductible. What else? I've been thinking about doing a kind of a book study. I've been talking with a few people about doing like a book study, taking a text and having it would probably have to be online, because the idea of doing something like that online and in person is just there's just way too many logistics. But I've been thinking about that, and I have a couple different, like one is a four Foundations of Mindfulness book. Another is a book called In the Buddha's Words that I've been kind of turning people on to. They're both quite kind of dense. So anyway, I'm thinking about that. If I'm not sure, but I'll talk about it a few times. If you're interested, reach out to me about it, and then we could talk about it. There would be some cost. It would be kind of like meeting once a month. and having a discussion probably online. Let's see, last thing. Oh yeah, so I have this kind of Buddhism cheat sheet of the 37 wings of awakening. Really, it's just the Buddhist lists. And if you're interested, send me an email or send me an email to JaceMurph, JASMURPH 40@gmail.com, and I'll send you a copy of it. I'll try to figure out how to print here so I can get some hard copies for people. Yeah. All right. Any goodness that comes from our time together, may this be dedicated to the freedom from suffering for all beings. May we all be free. Even you, even me.